One drop of blood, 240 tests, a $9 billion company, and a machine that almost never worked. Of those 240 advertised tests, only a fraction ever actually ran on the device they were selling. Roughly 10% of the menu. The rest, run somewhere else, or not run at all. Here's the part that should keep you up at night. The technology was always impossible. Scientists said so, engineers said so, the physics said so. And the more impossible the promise looked, the more powerful the company became. This is not a story about a machine that failed. The machine failing was the easy part to see. This is a story about how much trust a single, beautiful idea can buy. Before anyone bothers to ask for the data, it was right there in plain sight. Hundreds of investors, 2 retail giants, a board of statesmen and generals, and almost no one demanded a single page of proof. 2003. A 19-year-old walks away from Stanford with a fear that is, honestly, hard to argue with. People die because they find out too late. The blood test that could have caught it sat behind a needle they were too afraid to face, a lab too far away, a bill too expensive to pay. So she imagines something different. One drop of blood from a fingertip. Hundreds of tests, no needles. Results in minutes in your neighborhood pharmacy for a fraction of the price. It is, on paper, one of the most humane ideas in modern medicine. And she is magnetic. The voice low and steady, the black turtleneck, the unblinking certainty that this will save lives. She does not talk like a founder chasing a valuation. She talks like a missionary, and people believe her. The money does not arrive because the device works. The money arrives because the story is so good, and the storyteller so convincing, that the data feels like a formality. That is the seduction. You want it to be true. You want a world where a single drop of blood tells you everything before it is too late. And so did everyone who wrote her a check. The mission was real. The fear she named was real. And for a few clean years, almost nothing about it felt like a lie. But the biology refuses to cooperate. Here is the problem. Nobody on the magazine covers wanted to explain. A drop from a fingertip is not the same as blood drawn from a vein. It is tiny. It is contaminated with fluid from the tissue around it. To run a panel of tests on that one small drop, you have to dilute it again and again, until what you are measuring is a faint echo of the truth. And the more you dilute, the more the numbers drift. The engineers see it. The device they call the Edison gives unstable results. Run the same sample twice and you can get 2 different answers. Some tests it cannot do at all. The physics is not being stubborn out of spite. It is simply telling them what is and is not possible. So, the company arrives at a fork. 2 roads. One road is honest and slow. You go back to investors and partners and you say, the science is not there yet. Maybe not for years, maybe not ever with one drop. The other road is faster. You keep the story exactly as it is. The flawless device. The 240 tests. The revolution that is already here. You bury the doubt inside walls of secrecy and you keep selling. They chose the story. And from that moment, every reasonable-looking decision after it would be built on a thing they already knew was not true. Now, watch how a story becomes infrastructure. Theranos signs 2 of the largest retail partnerships in healthcare. Walgreens commits more than $140 million, including a $40 million loan that could convert into equity to put Theranos wellness centers inside its pharmacies. Safeway goes further, hundreds of millions of dollars to build clinics in more than 800 of its supermarkets. 800. Built. Waiting for a machine that worked. Then there is the board. Not doctors, not biochemists, statesmen. Henry Kissinger, former Secretary of State. George Shultz, former Secretary of State. James Mattis, a retired 4-star Marine general. Names that radiate authority. Names that make a room go quiet. Every single yes was reasonable in isolation. Walgreens saw a partner who claimed to be FDA-bound and revolutionary. Safeway saw the future of grocery store health. The statesman saw a young patriot solving a real human problem. And here is the fine print no one read. Not one of them, with all that power and all that money on the line, sat down and demanded the validation data. The proof that the device did what it said. They were not buying a tested technology. They were buying a feeling of certainty. And certainty, it turns out, is the easiest thing in the world to fake. And then it pays off. 2014. Forbes puts a number on the dream, $9 billion. The youngest self-made female billionaire in the world. The black turtleneck on magazine covers. The comparisons to Edison, to Jobs, to Einstein. She is invited to the White House. She shares stages with presidents. She is, for one shining stretch, not a founder, but a national hero. The story everyone wanted to be true has become, for all practical purposes, true. Walgreens centers are open in 41 stores in Arizona and California. Real patients are walking in. Real fingers are being pricked. Real numbers are coming back. And here is where you have to go cold. Because at that exact moment, at the absolute peak, with $9 billion stamped on the company and a hero on the cover, only roughly 10% of those 240 advertised tests actually ran on the Edison. The triumph everyone was applauding was built on a machine that, for the most part, still did not work. So, how do you keep the illusion alive when the machine can't deliver? You build a magic trick. Picture the demo. An investor, a partner, sometimes a journalist, sits in a clean white room. A nurse pricks their finger. The drop goes into a small container, and the container goes into the gleaming black Edison. Lights glow. The device hums. Everyone watches the future happen in front of them. What they do not see is what happens after they leave. Inside the company, a different reality. That tiny sample, too small and too diluted for the Edison to handle, is quietly carried into a back lab. And there, behind the wall, it is run not on the revolutionary device at all, but on modified commercial analyzers made by Siemens, the same machines any ordinary lab uses. The revolution in the back room was somebody else's hardware, hacked to swallow a sample it was never designed to take. And now, the part that stops being a business story and becomes a moral one. Because these were not only investor demos, real patients in those 41 stores gave real blood. And inside the lab, young employees watched the quality control runs fail and fail and fail again. A lab is supposed to throw out results when the controls don't pass. Theranos kept reporting them. 2 of them could not live with it. Tyler Schultz, the grandson of George Schultz, the statesman on the board, and Erica Chung, a lab associate barely out of college. They watched the numbers. They understood what an unstable test means in the real world. It means a healthy person can be told they have a disease they do not have. It means a sick person, a pregnant woman, someone bleeding inside, can be told they are fine and sent home. The drop of blood that was supposed to deliver the truth was, on some days, inventing it. Tyler raised it inside the company, then carried it to a reporter and watched it cost him his own grandfather's trust. Erica eventually walked it to the regulators, 2 people in their 20s, against $9 billion and a board of generals and secretaries of state. That is what the truth was worth at Theranos. 2 young people willing to lose everything to say it out loud. October 2015. The Wall Street Journal publishes the first of John Carreyrou's investigations. The wall comes down in public. The Edison barely works. The tests run on other people's machines. The quality controls fail. And the dominoes fall almost gently. One reasonable institution at a time, backing away from the thing it never checked. Walgreens freezes its expansion and eventually settles for $30 million. Safeway, whose 800 clinics never opened for a single Theranos patient, walks away. The statesmen quietly leave the board. The lawsuits arrive. Theranos eventually voids 2 years of blood test results, tens of thousands of them. Try to sit with that number for a second. Tens of thousands of real people who were handed a piece of paper about their own bodies that may have been wrong. In 2018, the SEC charges that the company raised more than $700 million from investors on claims that were not true. In January 2022, a jury convicts Elizabeth Holmes on 3 counts of wire fraud and 1 count of conspiracy. In November, she is sentenced to 135 months, 11 years and 3 months. She and her partner are ordered to pay $452 million in restitution. And here is the acidic truth at the center of all of it. The same single drop of blood that was sold as the future of honest, accessible truth about your body was, on its worst days, delivering invented numbers. And the most decorated board in Silicon Valley history, Men who had run wars and brokered peace between nations never once asked to see the data. It is tempting to close the file on one woman's lie, to make her the monster, lock the door, and feel safe. But that is too easy, because she did not write a single one of those checks to herself. 100 investors did. 2 retail giants did. Statesmen and generals lent their names, reporters wrote the covers. And all of them, everyone, made the same quiet trade. A compelling story instead of a verifiable result. They did not fail to see the truth because it was hidden. They failed to see it because the story was so good that asking for proof felt rude. And the uncomfortable part is this. You would have believed her too. You wanted a world where one drop of blood could save your life before it was too late. So did they. That is the blind spot, not the machine, the wanting. One drop of blood. It was supposed to be the smallest, truest thing in the world. In the end, it was just small enough to hide everything that wasn't there.